You're listening to the Nothing But Good podcast, a show that believes you should know where your food comes from, or more specifically, who it comes from. Each week, we bring you new interviews with the makers and founders of the brands you love so you can see how they came to be and what makes them different. We focus on telling the stories of emerging brands and brands who are committed to using better for you ingredients in the snacks they create. Every episode of the Nothing But Good podcast is brought to you by Oh Goodie Box, a snack box subscription service that sends healthier snacks directly to your home or office so that you have the fuel you need to make your greatest impact each day. Order your first box at ohgoodiebox.com and use code PODCAST for 15% off your first order. That's Oh Goodie, OHGOODIE box.com and code PODCAST for 15% off your first order. Now grab a snack and let's get to today's show.
Oh, Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. And for the listeners and the viewers out there, could you tell them a little about you and then Sun Swell as well?
Yeah, so I'm so excited to be here. I'm Kate. I am the co-founder and CEO of Sun Swell. I live in Santa Barbara, California. I'm also a relatively new mom. So most of my time is spent, with my daughter or building the business these days. Sun Swell is our mission is to make healthy and more sustainable eating more accessible. So we create delicious, healthy, organic foods using only real food ingredients, organic ingredients, and when it comes to our snacks and what we put in them, we always say, if you wouldn't have the ingredient itself in your pantry, it shouldn't be in your snack. So, it's a good rule of thumb to follow. At least when we develop our recipes, it's like we want you to know what every single ingredient is and actually be able to envision that ingredients and what it looks like when it's not, turned into something else.
That is such a good rule to follow. I feel like that's simple too. It's not like...
Totally. And, I've heard before only ingredients you can pronounce, which I think is also a good rule of thumb. But for example, like you can pronounce corn syrup. And, so it's like there's things that we're like, it's not just about being able to pronounce them, but it's about being able to know what they are. And something you would eat on its own as well.
100%. And how did the idea, where did you guys decide to do this from? Like what inspired it all?
Yeah. So I feel like it's kind of like the classic, start from scratch food brand. About 5 years ago, I had a pretty big dietary shift. I always cared about food, but I think I had a pretty negative relationship with food for most of my life. I was really obsessed with calories and carbs and kind of counting numbers. And it kind of turned into a negative relationship because it felt so restrictive. Like I felt like I was always logging and tracking and I couldn't eat this and I couldn't eat that. And when I learned about 5 years ago, I learned about a different way of eating, which is like basically like following a whole food diet. Mm-hmm. So instead of focusing on calories and carbs and things like that, really reading ingredient labels and making sure that the ingredients that you're eating and the foods that you're eating, the ingredients that make up those foods are made with whole foods, real foods, foods you would find in nature. And when I started following that type of diet, it was pretty life-changing for me, both mentally, like all of a sudden I felt like I was enjoying food. It wasn't about being restrictive. It was just about, knowing what I was eating. And also it was really crazy because I had battled asthma my whole life. I grew up with it. I had it since I was a child. And when I started eating this way, my asthma completely went away. So it's just, yeah. And it's like, so I started learning more about it. And I learned that a lot of, asthma is just one example, but there's a lot of other symptoms that can be driven by the food that you're eating. And I, later learned that it was that was all because I was eating gluten, which I learned I was intolerant from when I started following my new diet. But anyways, so it all just kind of inspired me to I wanted to eat this way. I wanted to eat real food. I wanted to eat food that was like simple. But at the time I was working in the office. I was a consultant. I was working like 16 hours a day in the office, and I always needed things grab and go. And I couldn't find any grab and go snacks that fit this way of eating that I was trying to accomplish, or at least any that fit this like way of eating, but also tasted really good. A lot of times I'd find like the healthy foods, and I was like, I don't want to eat this. So it was kind of like it stemmed from like this like personal like need. I felt like this was missing, but I also was kind of my old job. I was doing consulting in the like food industry, and I could see the trends like moving towards simpler foods, real foods, and
Yeah.
gluten free and plant based and all those things. And so it was kind of those two things put together, and started, making the original samples in our kitchen and handing them out to friends and family, and then doing local events and just growing from there.
I love that. I very recently, like the last 2 weeks, have decided to go gluten free.
Oh yeah.
Just we're trying to get pregnant, and so like all of the things that come with it. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if it's in my mind or if it's real, but I feel better. Like I have more energy. I don't feel like as like muggy headed, I guess. And I'm just like,
Right.
it's weird. And I was like,
Yeah,
I didn't know I had anything against it. Like,
totally. Well,
yeah,
that's what's crazy is that there's so many. I think that we get a little bit. There's there's a difference between like having a slight intolerance to an ingredient and being like allergic to it, or like highly like, so for example, like there's only, I think, 1% of Americans are celiac, which means like
right.
1% actually cannot eat gluten. It really affects them in a negative way. But there's another 20 million Americans estimated. I think it's more than that. I think we haven't like, a lot of people are still learning,
Yeah.
that are gluten sensitive, which is like what I am. And that's where I learned like gluten drove my asthma. It's gluten's one example, like soy, dairy. Those are some other ingredients that like are known to cause inflammation in a lot of us. And we just aren't aware that we're sensitive to these things because we've been eating them our whole lives. And like with
What?
you, like if all of a sudden you have more energy and like you have like less brain fog, it could be because you really do have a sensitivity to it, but you never knew that you never knew kind of like with the state of living without gluten, and it's crazy.
I had nothing to compare it to. It's just,
Right.
that's how you were supposed to feel. I just thought
Yeah.
that was normal. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
interesting. But I'm very excited for it. And it's part of the reason with like Oh Goodie, we're shifting to this kind of ingredient change where we want to support brands who are doing it right and who are supplying real food to people. And coming from the vending industry,
Yeah.
we've sold all kinds of things and I'm like, oh my god, I don't think that we're supposed to be eating this, but I grew up eating it thinking it was
Yeah.
no big deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm the same way. Like dairy is like another one. Dairy is another thing that a lot of people are, I think over half of Americans are intolerant to dairy, and we just don't know it
Well,
because it's like we've been having it since we were like babies. And so like,
right.
but I gave up dairy too. And I went from like being bloated all the time and like just thinking that was like the way of living to like not being like, I never get bloated anymore unless I still eat dairy on occasion. Like I love a good ice cream, but it's like, I'm like, okay, I like my body feels different now because I just ate it. So it's just so interesting. I think a lot of us are like, I think it's always, and the reality is like, not everybody's intolerant to gluten. So it's like, or to dairy. And so it's not necessarily evil, but it's more of like us being aware and understanding like,
Yeah.
do we have sensitivities to it? There's a lot of cool like food sensitivities tests and stuff like that. And there's like really good, like you can be like sensitive to like blueberries and not know it, So it's like there's all these things. It's like, or I think like nuts is another one where
Yeah.
most people are fine, but some people are a little sensitive, and you just don't, even if it's not if you're not allergic, you might be sensitive, you just don't know. So it's
Gosh, I
interesting.
didn't even think about taking a food test. Now I'm like, I'm gonna go take a food test.
Yeah, you should. There's the Everly Well test is, I think it's like $100 or something like that, but it tells you, and that was like really eye opening to me. I can't, I think like I say blueberries because I think that was like on my top 10, but I was like, oh, like that's not like, that's okay. I'm not gonna, I don't eat blueberries that much. So I'm gonna like take that little risk on occasion.
Right? But it does seem so interesting because it's like you think I hear blueberries and think, oh, they're high in antioxidants. Like every health food diet in the world says
Right.
eat
So they're
blueberries.
good.
And then
Right.
I think it's so important to remember, like when you're talking about food, that like it's not just this cookie cutter system
Yeah.
for everybody. That like you said, like some people are intolerant, some people have sensitivities, some people, it's like you've got to know your body and take the time to do that research for yourself.
Totally.
So
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I love that you're thinking more about that. It's funny because um as a brand in the healthy food space and like the real food space, sometimes I look around like Whole Foods and I'm like, gosh, there's so many other brands. Like there are a lot of, it feels really competitive kind of. It's like, oh,
yeah,
there's a lot of other brands, especially like this clean food movement that we're in. When we started, it wasn't that big of a movement, but it's gotten big over the years. But then you go to like the airport and you're like, oh no, there's no healthy food. Like it's like we get a little, it's like there's so much, especially I mean, vending is like one where it's like it's still the same candy that's been in there for like,
30 years.
yeah. And it's like so it's like sometimes I feel like the industry is making really good progress, and then other times like you walk around and you're like, no, we still have so much room to like do better here. So
It's so true. And as you guys are like in this like new frontier kind of like, are you seeing like consumers change their opinion around it? Like, are you getting more educated people finding you than in the past or
yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like, so I think the types of consumers that buy our products that like seek us out are pretty educated by the time they get to us, because they're like, okay, I'm looking for something clean. I'm looking for something really simple. I think what we find that's always interesting to me is when people that discover us when they don't eat that way already, and
yeah,
they're surprised. Like one of the most common things that we hear is like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that like healthy food could taste this good. Like that's
yeah,
always like where I get really excited, because I'm like, there's so many people out there that aren't necessarily trying to eat this way, but then they discover, wait, this can taste really good. And like we use dates in our products to sweeten them, and dates are like this. I mean, like literally, it's like nature's candy. They're so freaking good. They're so sweet, and I'm like, there's not even like a roll. There doesn't even need to be refined sugars. Like we have these like amazing natural sugars in nature. And so I think when people think of healthy food, if you're not a healthy food eater, a lot of times you think it's like going to taste like cardboard, and you have kind of that perception. So for us, like that's like the really bright light is when we have people like that are just surprised that it's like, or they'll eat it because they were gifted it or something and be like,
right.
and then they'll seek us out and they'll be like, wow, like I'm so excited. I like finally found something that like I can like feel good about snacking on as dessert and stuff like, so that's really what, I think where I feel like I see a lot of the change is just like more kind of awareness of people who weren't necessarily looking for it.
That's so good. And I do love Sun Swell because your products just taste so good. We have so many products that come through, trying to be in the boxes or in the vending side of
Yeah.
things. It's just like, ooh, either one, you're marketing yourself as healthy, but I just read your ingredients and you're nowhere near what
Yeah.
we would consider healthy. Or two, you're saying you're healthy, but I can't eat that. Like I can't physically make myself like force this down because it tastes so gross. So
Yeah.
Sun Swell is just perfect. It's like it really does feel like a treat. Like I'm just like, this is so nice, and that you can read all of the ingredients, and it's all things you could go buy in like a produce section. And so
Yeah.
it's nice.
Well, the other crazy thing about eating, like we always say like, we're like nutrient dense snacks, because if you think about like and like, don't get me wrong, I like love my M&Ms, but if you think about like on occasion or whatever, like, but you could sit there and eat like, I mean, you could probably eat like a large bag of M&Ms and M's and not feel full. Like you could just keep
No,
going and going. And there's a reason why like you overeat, and it's because a lot of the ingredients in traditional candy or sweets or anything like that, or really any snack food, it doesn't have to be sweet. The nutrients have been like stripped out of it, and so it
yeah,
doesn't actually make you feel full. So when you're eating snacks made with real foods, like our Sun Swell bites, we say nutrient dense because it's just food in its natural form. No nutrients have been stripped out, and so you actually can't, I mean, you could overeat on them, but you will notice that you feel full after eating like a little snack pack. You're like, okay, that was filling. You're not like trying to like, reach for like this endless bowl of that, so it's like it helps me from overeating when you are eating nutrient dense foods like that. And that's why like it's the same as like when you eat a banana. Like you can eat a banana and feel satisfied versus you can eat like a bag of chips and like maybe not feel satisfied,
Not at all. I heard it said, I interviewed someone a couple weeks ago. She's a health trainer and all these things. And she said, your body can't actually count calories. Like your body doesn't have a calorie counter inside of it. It doesn't know whether or not you've consumed 2,400 calories or whatever. Your body can only like process nutrients. And so it knows when it's nutrient deprived, and so it's still going to ask you for more even if you did already eat the whole bag of M&Ms, because it didn't get anything that it needed from that. So you
I
still
love that. That's a great way to think about it.
right? And I was like, I had never considered it as a former calorie counter myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, we're trained so wrong, I feel like, in our country, because it's just like, as a society, it's like, oh, count your calories, count your calories, count your calories. And it's like, well, I can count my calories. I can count how many calories are in that bag of M&Ms, but it did me no good because I didn't give my body anything that it actually needed.
Totally. Yeah. It's like recovering calorie counters. That's what
it is. So real. One of the other things I love about Sun Swell that we'd be remiss not to talk about is just your sustainability efforts. I love that when you guys sent us your box, everything was just so beautiful, and then you explain that it's all sustainable. Even the little postcard that you sent us, like just telling us about your brand, it's what you plant it, right? It's got seeds in it, and so even that piece of paper is sustainable, and it goes back and it can create something beautiful for this earth. And I just thought, wow, that is so much attention to detail. That's so much care. So where did that sustainability piece come from?
Yeah, so we definitely, when we first started the company, we definitely always wanted to be like a do-good company. Like we wanted to be, of course, we wanted to, grow and be big and be profitable and like all those things. But we also wanted to like have the business be more than that. Like we wanted to, it's myself and my co-founders, my husband, like we're devoting like our life to this is all we do, and we wanted to feel really good about like the impact that we were leaving behind with the business. So that kind of the pieces of it have unfolded as we've grown. So the first thing we really learned early on in our business about what it means to be a B corporation. And for anybody listening who doesn't know, a B corporation is to be B Corp certified. It's almost like getting an organic certification for your food, but you're getting a B Corp certification for your business. And to be B Corp certified, it means that you meet certain standards when it comes to how you treat all stakeholders of your business. That includes your employees, your suppliers. It includes how you treat the environment. There's all these kind of different layers, and you have to meet these certain standards to be certified as a B Corp. Some of the biggest B Corps out there are like Patagonia, Ben and Jerry's, a lot of those really awesome companies that when you think of like these companies, you're like, yeah, these are like mission driven companies. And we learned about that early on, and we're like, okay, this is so aligned with what we're trying to do. And I think as a business owner, it gives us permission to make, if all you care about is the bottom line, like if all you care about is profit and nothing else, your decisions are different than if you care about profit and people and the planet. And so that's like, that's kind of something we like established as a business early on, is like, hey, we want to be a B Corp. We want that to like be a guiding principle. Like we want that being a B Corp to like help guide our decisions as we grow. That was like the first thing we did. And then as we built the business and we realized like, hey, we're a food company, like we're putting products out there in the world, we're shipping boxes, like we're doing all these things, like we need to be thinking about sustainability and like how we can leave the environment off in a better place. And there's a lot that we do, but like just this is like a simple thing. Like if you it's really beautiful when when a box comes on your doorstep from a company and it's all these bright colors and stuff. That's beautiful. But when you put heavy inks on boxes, they go from being easily recyclable, and even a regular shipping box is compostable too. When you cover them in heavy inks, all of a sudden, like they're not compostable anymore. And so like for us, we're like, okay, well, let's use a brown box with compostable tape that's fun and bright. So you still get that like fun experience, but like it leaves the environment in a better place. So that's kind of how we think about decisions, is like we still want to like be a fun brand and be a special brand, but like how can we do that in the most sustainable way possible? I mean, we really start to like get creative around it. Like I think you can be super sustainable without having to make like any trade-offs from like the, consumer experience point of view.
That is so cool. And even your packaging, right? Even like the product, like your cookie bites, like even
Yep.
those
So
bags.
talk about the product itself. So there's a couple things we do. So first of all, with the ingredients, we try to source directly from like U.S. family farms when we can.
So
We
cool.
can't do that with everything because some ingredients are, nuts are grown in other countries, like cashews. We use those are grown in other countries, and we're not an
Sure.
importer. But for example, all of our dates come from a farm in Southern California, which is just like 100 miles away from us. So it's like not only are we supporting this awesome farm in the U.S., but we're also like when they're coming to our facility to actually manufacture them, they're it's less carbon for the shipping and stuff like that. So that's like number one is like the ingredients. We're also 100% organic, which organic food we believe is not only good for you, but it's also better farming practices. So it's better for topsoil. So that's also better for the environment. So we sell about 75% of the products we sell are in compostable packaging. The little snack packs of bites, we don't have transitioned to compostable yet because it's a story. We would have to have a whole nother podcast on compostable packaging, but those will ultimately be transitioned into compostable. We're going to be doing a trial of them in compostable in early 2022. We actually already transitioned. The original thing didn't work, so but we're going to be doing a trial in early 2022. So you'll be able to see, like be one of the first people to see those once we have them.
So cool. And I love that as you're sharing this, it's like it really is, it sounds like a commitment. Like you're doing things different than mainstream is. And so I feel like that's exciting, but that's also like a lot of hard work. So I just like hope that the listeners right now appreciate like how much effort goes in to creating that experience for customers, but then also doing so in a way that's good for the environment, and you're not taking shortcuts, to preserve the bottom line.
Yeah, it is 100% tons of effort. And I have like my brand starting out come to me all the time asking me like, hey, should we do this? Should we do this? And my like recommendation is always like, if as a business leader you're passionate about these things and you're willing to put the energy behind it, like yes. But if you're ever doing something to just like check the box, like it's just not worth it. Like it's
Yeah.
easier to do it the regular way. Like so it's like it's not easy to do things differently. But at the end of the day, it's like what makes us feel more proud of what we're building. And I definitely, I think, creates more challenges, but it gives us a lot of purpose in what we do. And I think a lot of what we're doing on the sustainability side is kind of pioneering the way for other companies in the food industry. And that's really important to us. So
I love that. Well, gosh, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but for listeners, what are some of your most popular items? I know that we carry your cookie bites right
yeah,
now, and we do all of your your prepackaged snacks. But
yeah,
on your website, you guys do more than just snacks, right? You could like stock a full pantry, I
yeah,
think. So if you
yeah.
want
So
to
we do.
a little bit.
Yeah, so we do. We have we say snacks and pantry staples. So with our snacks, we have our cookie bites, which are what you carry. We also have just kind of like dried fruits and nuts, and those are again like most of our dried fruits are coming, and a lot of our nuts are coming directly from U.S. family farms. We really prioritize that, not just because it's great to support those farms, but because that means when you get the food, it tastes fresher and better.
Mhm.
If it goes directly from a farm to us to package and then to your pantry, that's going to be a fresher product than having it sit in all in warehouses and stuff like all. So that's kind of that's really what we prioritize, and also a wide range of pantry staples. So from grains to spices to superfoods and whatnot. I definitely like. I think our most popular products are the cookie bites that
They're so
we
good.
offer. Yeah, I know they're they're unique to Sun and Swell. Like they're not you can't find our cookie bites anywhere else. Um and then but outside of that, like for the things that we carry only on our website, that's like the dried mangoes are really delicious. We have dried peaches, almonds, kind of those really just delicious natural snack foods that we don't even have to do anything to. They just are grown straight from the earth, which is amazing.
I love it. Well, Kate, thank you so much for your time. The last question that everybody gets asked is, our mascot is a koala. So we say, what's your definition of a koality or quality life?
Yeah, I think it's a life, a quality life. I would say it's one like where you're living with like purpose and kindness, and you're thinking about other people and the planet. And I think that is ultimately feels so rewarding, and just trying to be grateful and appreciate like all of the amazing things that life has to offer us as well.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Nothing But Good podcast. If you loved getting to know Kate and want to stock up on healthy treats and staples for your pantry, go to sunandswellfoods.com and use code OHGoodie25, that's OHGoodie25, for 25% off your first order. And remember, if you want to get a variety of better-for-you snacks like Sun Swell delivered to you monthly, go to ohgoodiebox.com. That's OHGOODIE box.com and use code podcast for 15% off your first snack box. All of these links and codes are in today's show notes, so don't worry, you don't have to remember it. Just go to the summary of the show and click on the link that works best for you. You guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review and share this episode with your friends. Happy snacking. We'll see you next week.